Welcome to Eternal Journey, the podcast.
What is up, everyone? Welcome back for another episode of Eternal Journey, the podcast that talks about all things eternal with a focus on unlimited play. I'm your host, Jedi, aka Caesar the Crowd Pleaser. And this week on episode 23 of the podcast, we're going to be talking about sealed strategies and league. That's right. Every month on Eternal, there is a sealed league that everyone is welcome to participate in, as well as it being the format for occasional tournaments and whatnot. So we're going to talk about it this week, see some of the strategies, some of the tips and tricks to hopefully help you improve at another version of Limited. But a little bit of housekeeping. Want to go ahead and mention EJthePodcast on YouTube. That's right. If you would like to enjoy some content whenever you like at your leisure, then definitely check it out at EJthePodcast on YouTube, where I post all kinds of content to include A, this podcast, B, limited draft videos, C, limited sealed videos, and D, the occasional pack opening, special events, and constructed tournaments. Definitely check that out on there. A lot of fun. Definitely like to see you on there. It's completely free, so why not? Next up, if you'd like to catch me live and interact with me while streaming, I do this at twitch.tv/Jedi_EJ every Monday, Tuesday, and Sunday mornings. That's right. Come in, hang out. I primarily draft, but I will occasionally stream a tournament or some constructed stuff based on what's going on that weekend. So check it out. And lastly, I want to go ahead and mention Farming Eternal, the podcast. That's right. This is another limited podcast for Eternal. I believe we are the only two of our kind. They do a fantastic job over there. Patumaro, Ben Grasher, and Barefoot Farmer. They are fantastic limited players. They have a great podcast going on with plenty of content. They do a meta breakdown of 7-win decks that people send in there. So definitely tune into them. Felt the need to give them an individual shout out because they were kind enough to mention me on their podcast, which is awesome. I really appreciate that, guys. So thank you so much if any of you are listening to this one. But all right, guys, that's going to do it. So let's go ahead and go into our pack one, pick one. Go ahead and pull this up on screen for those of you watching this on YouTube. Alrighty then. So luckily I did a bunch of pack openings this past week, being the end of the month, and got all those payouts and whatnot, especially kind of doing the Cassandra thing, which if you guys don't know, he is a phenomenal top ranked draft streamer as well. So you guys can tune into that channel. That is Cassandra on Twitch. So he saves his packs and cracks them open at the end of the week and does like a kind of guessing game / giveaway. I am not one to copy people's things, so I'm not going to do that, but it was nice to kind of hold off and wait to open a plethora of packs. So I was smart enough to take several screenshots of some of the packs. I did not specially select these. I just randomly decided to screenshot stuff. And so I feel like it gives me a lot more ammunition. I typically use the first pack that I open to legitimately be a pack one, pick one, but these will do the same. I like doing it from the game, trying not to use the pack generator from Eternal Warcry. Not that I think there's anything wrong with it, but I just want, I don't know if there's a special algorithm that they have for the packs or not, but this would be more accurate. So yeah, anywho, slight tangent or beat around the bush. So here we go, going into the comments. Like I said, this format is starting to get a little, not old, but it's been around for a minute. So I'm not going to spend too much time on it, though I will go over the cards that are kind of important for my new listeners. We have Death from Above. This is the slow spell for 4 blue. Give a unit flying and berserk. A decent finisher. It combos really well with the Snowmass Jotun that can get in for 10 out of nowhere. It's won some games, but I think it is one of the last playables you'll put in your deck, and definitely not a first pick. These goes very, very late because I don't think a deck wants more than one. We have Belligerent Yeti, which is the 2/1 Yeti for 2 and a blue, and pay 1 to twist it to deal 1 damage to an enemy. Well, it's a 2-drop. You'll play it, but only if you're in Primal, and we've already established Primal is the weakest color of them all by a long shot. Moving on, we have Angry Prophet. This seems like a solid playable in any kind of Stone Scar deck. It is a good 2-drop, but it's it shines very well in the aggressive decks. It is the 1/2 cultist for 2 and a shadow, and +1 attack for each of your other units. So if you have 3 units in play, and it does not count itself because it says other units. If you have 3 units total in play, including the prophet, it would be a 3/2. So it ends up getting in there. It's not too bad. We have Elder Meditant, which even with the buff, I feel this card is still pretty medium. We have Sizzleback Salamander, the 2/2 beast for 3 and a red. Has Berserk. You can twist it for 4 to deal 2 damage to an enemy player. Again, playable, but we're not excited about it. Boot Knife, not even going to talk about this one. And then Steadfast Paladin, which is the 2/1 Paladin for 2 and a green. And it has invulnerable to damage on your turn. I actually think this card is really solid. It is still at the end of the day a 2/1, but the fact that it can just repeatedly attack without fear of dying makes it extremely well, especially for a color that wants to capitalize on onslaught triggers. And if you are able to buff it in any form or fashion later on, it could definitely get in there for some serious damage. So I like Steadfast. I think I'm good taking it here. Next up, we have a Blood Nurse. This is the 1/1 for 1 and a shadow. And you can pay 2 to twist it to make a 1/1 vampire bat with flying and lifesteal. So this card is good. It does require some help. You definitely, just being able to twist it once to get the 1/1 is not really that great. But if you're able to buff its health in any form or fashion, and let's get say get 3 vampire bats from it, then now you're talking it's worth its value. I still don't think I want to first pick it. I think it's still Steadfast Paladin. Going into our uncommons, we have Swift Refusal. That's not a first pick. Then we have Auric Reclaimer, the 2/3 Minotaur for 2 and a shadow. So that's already a good body, even if it didn't have any other attacks, but it does. Shift 6, play a relic weapon with power and or attack and armor equal to the highest attack and armor amongst relic weapons in your void. So honestly, in limited, in most cases, it's just gonna get you back, like create another version of a weapon used earlier in the game, which isn't bad. You can play this card on 2, which is just fine. And if you are in some kind of Argenport style deck where you can pick up the maces or the size, then if you draw this later in the game, you could play it for 6 and get a free copy of your weapon back. And it'd be great if you can even sometimes get a 2 for 1 out of it. So yeah, Auric Reclaimer is solid. I like it. Not really sure if I take it over Steadfast Paladin. Maybe I do. It seems it is the more powerful card. I think I could take that. And then our last uncommon is a Justice card. It is Valkyrie Accuser, a 3/5 Valkyrie for 7 green. So it's quite a lot. It has flying, it has Aegis, and then it has Onslaught. Play Timidity on an enemy unit. And Timidity means that the unit that is cursed cannot attack. So it is a semi-removal spell. Man, I do like Valkyrie Accuser. I will admit, guys, if I could give you a little bit of a personal taste, this is one thing that shows that I've definitely not been results orientated, is that I have yet to either A, play a Valkyrie Accuser, and I'll get to in a second, or B, play in a Valkyrie Accuser to any such relevance. I.e., I have literally drafted this card probably somewhere between 6 to 8 times, right? And the one time, literally the one time I cast it, it was already silenced by a porcelain mask. So I think it is quite humorous that this card has done stone cold nothing for me. But I have lost to it plenty of times and has seen the value in the Timidity. Obviously, Injustice is fairly easy to trigger a Onslaught. And for all intents and purposes, if you have a bunch of flyers, you could play this on one of their behemoths or something like that and get a bigger unit, stop it, prevent it from attacking. So it is, for all intents and purposes, a removal spell. I do like it quite a bit, but I think, considering that we have 2/2 drops, I think taking a 7 drop that doesn't just straight up win you the game on the spot, because at the end of the day, it is just a 3/5. The Aegis is relevant as well. It means most of the time the opponent has to use 2 spells to get rid of it. It is a strong card, but I think at the end of the day, I value 2 drops quite highly. So I think I would be between the Steadfast Paladin and the Reclaimer, and maybe even the Reclaimer, it just being a potential 3 for 1. Opening up our rare, we have Aurelian Infestation. This is a slow spell for 1 at a time. And it says either A, play a 1/1 Scorpion with Deadly. So that's standard yeah, you get that on the Scorpion card as is, or play 2 shifted 1/1 Scorpions with Deadly. And honestly, I think I'm going to go ahead and go with the Aurelian Infestation. Reason being, Time is a very deep and strong color. You get solid cards in Time, both in all 4 packs. And the fact that it is 1 cost means it gives you a turn 1 play that essentially gives you an automatic 2 for 1. Just because the Scorpions having Deadly means that your opponent's going to have to waste something to get rid of them. And in most cases, it's going to be 2 separate cards individually. It has the flexibility that if you draw it late game and you just need a Scorpion, you can run it out. And if you play it early enough, you can shift the 2 to get 2 for 1. So yeah, I like, and it's easily splashable. So yeah, I think between all these cards, I think the highest floor and a decent ceiling is the Aurelian Infestation. So I'd probably just take that. But I could see arguments for all 3: the Steadfast Paladin, the Reclaimer, and the Accuser. If you are in some form of justice, there are plenty of interchangeable finishers, and Accusers honestly go pretty late because of the double justice requirement. So I think I would be between Paladin and Reclaimer, and in that fight, the Reclaimer would probably win for me, I would like to say. All right, guys, that is the pack 1 pick 1. Hope you got a little something out of that. Let me know what your pick was in the comments below if you were going to choose something else. All right, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive right into our main topic. For those of you that are new to the limited scene on Eternal or whatnot, there are 2 versions of limited. There is draft and there is sealed. So they're both called limited because you have a limited card pool to build a deck from and play with said deck. So thus why it is called limited, and everything is kind of typically encompassed under that. So draft is where you open up 4 packs in consecutive order and you pick a card, pass, pick a card, pass, pick a card, pass, kind of like draft picking, and you build a deck from there. Sealed, on the other hand, is instead of picking a single card from various packs, you are actually opening up X amount of packs on the spot, all in one shot, and that is the card pool you are able to build a limited deck from. Still, once again, 45 cards, but your pool, so to speak, is based off of what is inside those packs, and that's it. You're not able to kind of hand pick what cards go into your draft or not. So that's the big difference. This typically means a couple of things, which we will talk about in a moment. But yeah, that's the 2 main differences. The reason why I wanted to talk about it is because Eternal has essentially 2 ways that you will see a sealed event. They have not done any kind of sealed queues yet, but they have seen you have a monthly league, which is what they call, they rename it every month, and it's open at the beginning of the month and ends at the end of the month, just like the ranked and draft ranked portions are. And long story short, here it is a very good deal to do, good value and great for your collection should you choose to do it. It is cost effective, which I won't go into too depth about because I do in my Being Efficient on Eternal podcast or episode. So definitely check that out. I believe it's like episode 3 or something like that. One of my earlier episodes, you guys can check that out. It goes into depth on how to make or be the most efficient or most optimal on Eternal on a daily basis if you're trying to be, close to free to play. The sealed event is good because every week you start off as soon as you jump in, and the thing is it's retroactive. So even if you're not able to jump in at the beginning of the month, you are not going to miss out on you're not going to get any kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Penalty, I guess, for doing it late. In fact, sometimes there might be the argument where you get a bonus for doing it. But long story short, the first week you will open up 8 packs, randomly selected based on that month how they want to do it. Typically, it has the most of the most recent set, and then it kind of gives you incremental packs. Like you might get 4 of the current set, which at the moment is Dark Frontier, and then the other 4 will be a combination of previous sets. And then every following week after that, so weeks 2, 3, and 4, you will add 2 additional packs to your card pool, adding every card in those packs into your card pool, able to modify your deck, etc., etc. This sometimes leads to you entirely changing your deck to a different kind of archetype altogether based on what you open, or just simply modifying the current deck you have and improving it, taking out some of your less valuable playables for your more efficient ones. So as far as League is concerned specifically, because you are constantly adding cards to your pool, I do highly recommend jumping in as soon as you can. And I'll tell you why. You don't have to play your games. Like I said, they are retroactive. So if you enter the league on week 3, you are still going to get your 8 starting packs and then immediately open your 4 additional packs for the 2 weeks that you occasionally essentially missed. I recommend opening your pool as early as possible, including the first week. Reason being is you have the random off chance of getting a busted sealed pool. And earlier in the month, there where people are in general opening up less packs than you have, or just they are, period. Like people are only opening up 8 packs versus later on you open up 10 and 12, etc., all the way up to 14. If you have a busted seal pool, there is a less likely chance of your opponents having a sealed pool or deck that is equivalent in power level to yours. So if you have a good sealed pool, you build a busted deck, playing your 10 games or 20 games if you count your tiebreakers early when you have that advantage could work to your advantage. That seemed like poor English, but and so yeah, where most people are opening up their packs and they have maybe a medium to subpar deck and you have a really good deck, you're able to go in there and kind of capitalize on that because someone is going to play. The flip side to that is if you are one of those people that has essentially let's say you open up your seal pool and things just don't look good and you're like, nope, I feel like I'm going to go like 2 and 8 with this or whatnot, then you can simply not play those games and wait till you open up your next 2 packs and see if that improves your deck. And then if not, wait again all the way until the 4th week. And so you have the highest chance of having the best deck possible to play your games. Of note though, the longer you wait, the more packs your opponents are going to have access to. And so typically the 4th week is where you really see a lot of the more busted decks because everyone has opened up 14 packs. And so they have the ability, they have access to the most amount of cards to improve their deck. So that is the sealed league that you can do every month. And once again, I won't go into too depth about it. It's just worth doing it if you need to build your collection or you like getting in some extra limited play. Like I said, if you don't care about your rank, you are able to change your deck in between games. So you can wait till the last week, open up all your packs, and you have access to, I believe, 80 games. I believe it is 10 counted scored games and then 10 tiebreaker games that only help your win percentage in the event of a tie that you can play. And so then you're getting 80 games where you could play with the sealed pool against other sealed pools. So you can experiment, try different deck combinations, try out different cards that you may or may not see on a regular basis and get your own kind of agenda or evaluation of them. So yeah, that is the advantage of the monthly sealed league and why you should do it and why you could. The other slightly less common, or actually I should say way more uncommon version is occasionally Direwolf will do some type of limited tournament or event where you are once again opening up your packs. I say this, I believe they've only had 2 so far, but they have had them, and typically once they try something, if they see success, they are willing to do it again. One was the limited challenge, I believe is what it's called, the limited rank challenge tournament or whatnot, where they took the top everyone that qualified being top 100 of leaderboards in draft did a sealed tournament, and then the top 64 drafted, and then the top 8 drafted again. So there you had a sealed pool, you opened packs, build a pool, and played X amount of games. And then there was the entry exam event, which was a test for the challenge. So I guess I should have said these in the opposite order, but c'est la vie, where once again you opened up X amount of packs, built a deck, and played, and you were able to change your deck in between. So those were the 2 instances of them having a sealed tournament in limited or on Eternal, which, it comes in handy, and then it's a thing. So yeah, that's sealed and the two cases why you will play it. So now let's go into the nitty gritty of the format. The biggest impact that the difference in sealed and draft has on a format is that the packs are more randomized. And since you're only building your deck from those packs, having a more consistent deck is a little harder and happens less frequent. And so in general, a sealed format is typically slower than a draft format for that specific set. Granted, as I did mention before, the packs that you open are randomized by the way Direwolf just kind of wants to do them that week or for that event. And so sometimes they don't exactly 100% cross over. Like in MTG, for example, typically the sealed format resembles or mimics the standard format at the time. And it's kind of designed to interact, much how there's two curated packs to go with the current draft or current standard pack in draft, right? And so those packs are designed to kind of coexist with packs 1 and 4. Well, in a sealed format, that may or may not be the case. And so typically it will somewhat mimic what is going on in the draft format, but not 100%. And because of those inconsistencies, the format will be slower because decks just aren't going to be as mainstream as they typically are. Which, what I mean by this is, for example, if you end up being right now in this current format like the Rakano deck or the Stone Star deck, you can typically prioritize 2 drops as you're drafting and 3 drops and keep your curve low and take things like Daring Maneuver and Pummel and Char to keep your curve low and be the aggressive. Well, you might be in a position where like, oh wow, I opened up 3 Oni Ronin in my packs, but then those are and then you only get like 2 more 2 drops and that's it, right? In Fire. And so the packs won't allow you to be a low to the ground aggressive deck. You're kind of at the mercy of what your pool has, which adds a different aspect to the deck building process and makes it fun for a lot of people. I think it is nice to kind of reinvent the wheel, so to speak, using the same cards, because how they say limitation and restriction breeds creativity. And so you are able to kind of expand what decks are capable of because it ends up being a slower format. What this means is that you shouldn't prioritize building an aggressive deck. Now granted, don't get me wrong, there are times where your pool just comes together. All these things are going to be guidelines, not necessarily the end all be all. Like you will still come across someone that has just a busted sealed pool that they're able to go super control-y or super big or super low to the ground and aggressive, and you just get run over. And plus there's always the chance for variance and people just have the nut draw even with limited cards available in their deck. So it being a slower format means that 2 drops aren't as important, though they are still needed. Once again, this doesn't mean like, oh sweet, like this format is so much slower that I don't need 2 drops. That's not true. Like I said, your opponent can still curve out on you and smash you in the face if you're on the draw with just a 4 drop in your hand. So it is you are still incentivized to play your 2 drops and have a solid curve. But you may, let's say, for example, if the rule of thumb is to have somewhere around 7 to 9, or that might be a little high, but like 6 to 8 2 drops, you might be able to get away with maybe having 4. And if you're on the play, you might be able to get away with not having a 2 drop in your hand. And so that is still relevant, but you still want to have 2 drops in your deck because your opponent could very easily go aggressive and curve out on you and smash you. If you're not, you still want to value your curve, have 2s, have 3s, have 4, 5s, maybe a little bit of removal and some 6s. But because the format is slower, means games tend to go a little bit longer, which means your top end cards go up in value, right? Sometimes when we're looking at certain cards, if our deck's aggressive, we're looking at it, we always have to apply the quadrant theory and look at cards and see like, well, are we even going to be able to play this card? Does our deck facilitate getting up to 7 power? Will this deck or will this card get us back into the game if we're behind? Will it help break parity? And so cards that are more impactful, that sometimes just the sheer casting cost of them would stop you or prevent you from playing them, now might go up in value. You might be inclined to play them because of the fact that the decks or the format in general is a little bit slower, so you have less fear, not completely no fear, just less fear of getting completely utterly ran over by an aggressive tempo deck. And then sometimes because the format is slower, it leads to more larger or higher chance of parity or stalled board states. And so those big swingy game changer cards can really make a difference. So it's something to look at and something to reevaluate. If, for example, there's a 7-drop that you want to play and you're just like, yeah, I never, like, for example, the Accuser from Reprack One Pick One. You're the kind of person that's like, look, I've gotten to 7 power 1 out of every 7 or 9 games that I play and draft. So you're gonna be like, yep, nope, not doing it. And you never play it. You just never make your deck. Well, now you might be incentivized to play 1 or 2 of those cards in your deck, because why not, right? And so that is something to consider. Yeah, just your top end cards go up in value, as well as your answers to those top end cards. Eviscerate might go up in value now because of the fact that some decks, I have heard from several drafters, where they just feel like 5 power to kill something is just a little too clunky, even if it is unconditional removal, and so they may not play it or just play 1. Versus in a sealed format, you are probably, like I said, once again, more incentivized to play these cards because of the fact that they will guarantee that you have an answer for your opponent's bombs, because you are going to have the time to play that, maybe even still play something else or get in there. Another thing that this leads to is a larger chance for triple faction decks. This comes off of the back of 2 things. 1, slower format means you have more time to draw more sigils and play more of them, so you have a higher chance of seeing your various splashes and things like that. But the other side comes out of more of a necessity factor. Like maybe your pool does not have enough playables in 2 colors. Like, for example, maybe your top end is all in 1 color, and then you have a little bit of early game in another color, but not really quite enough to round out your deck in either. So you are essentially forced to play a 3rd faction. So you are able to even that out. And so because of that, you see more often than not people playing a 3rd faction in their deck, and sometimes just straight up being 3 color if they have the correct fixing. Like, for example, if you are primarily in time, because you know the game will go longer and you are able to play those cards. But like I said, once again, sometimes you just have the issue of the simple fact that, hey, I don't have enough playables in 1 or 2 colors to have a viable deck. So yep, guess I'm just splashing a 3rd color to make this happen. Or maybe you just have a bomb rare. You have this legendary that you just know is going to win the game if it sticks, and so it is worth playing. And so you splash that 3rd color because maybe it is in one of your factions and not the other. So you want to have the 3rd color so you're able to play this game-changing bomb. So all those things make it more viable. It is really, once again, left up to the creativity. I'm taking really broad strokes in this advice, but without opening seal pools and knowing exactly what each format has in it. Because, you know, for example, in MTG, you're opening up 6 packs of the same set, or, you know, 4 and 2. And so it is a little more specific, versus here, every tournament or every sealed league can offer different cards based on that. And you never really quite know what synergies happen. And it makes the card pools like absolutely huge. But yeah, it's something to look at. You can push the limits a little bit more in sealed if you have the power base as well as the cards to back up said decision. You can't just like, oh yeah, I'm for sure, you know, blue red, and then I'm gonna splash this triple justice legendary, you know, like Martyr's Chains or something like that, just because it's Martyr's Chains. Like, that's pushing it a little bit. But you know, if you're Combray and you see maybe a Grimva, like, yeah, sure, maybe it's worth splashing the shadow so you can play Grimva. Like that is viable. Or like I said, just straight up being 3 faction, because maybe you are Rakano and you have really good removal in shadow, and so you try to go wind chest so you have access to that shadow removal. Like, things like that are completely viable. It's not 100% doable, but it is more doable than typically when you are in draft, especially when if your pool gives you access to good fixing. All right, so As I mentioned earlier, we also have the chance for more board stalls. Why? It's a slower format. Units typically sit there to bounce off each other, and so there's a higher chance where at some point you are no longer the beatdown, or you stabilize on your opponent, and then you're both just kind of sitting there staring at each other in the Mexican standoff. So this leads to, once again, what I talked about. You want to go bigger over the top of your opponent, playing those really swingy cards. This, I won't, we just talked about that, so I'm not going to go into in depth on that. The flip side to that is to have evasive units. That's right. So units with some form of evasion, whether it's unblockable or flying or maybe even shift, go up in value because of the fact that they are able to penetrate and still deal damage through these board states and kind of break that board state. Because if you, for example, have that 5/5, that I think it's a 5/1 or 5/2 lifesteal unblockable in Shadow, that I believe it's a 6 or 7. It's pretty expensive. Your opponent is forced now to make a play to either try to get it off the board or start attacking you to force you to block and stuff like that. And so evasive units, flyers, big flyers, things like that all come into play, and they go up in value as well, because you have to think about what would happen once you stabilize. Like sometimes having just enough big creatures will get you there. Sometimes it won't when your opponent has big creatures or a bunch of big units as well. So you need something that can get in there. Another version of that is something that gains value over time. Things like certain relics that you can repeat, or a site. Obviously, most of the sites are just good. But let's take, for example, Clan Barracks, right? Clan Barracks has the opportunity that if you have a critical mass of Scout in your deck in some form or fashion, or if you are Praxis and you have access to the Cryptic Etchings, you can essentially sit there and generate value over time by creating a 4/4 every turn. Things like this can definitely help tip the scales in a board state. So you want to look at those kind of things and consider them. Once again, you don't want to dig too deep. You don't want to push off the deep end to make this kind of stuff happen. Mainly, it's just prioritizing evasive units, even if they are slightly subpar bodies, because of the fact that they help break a board state if you do end up getting stalled, or allow you to continue to get in damage. So just add a tick mark to that. Evasive units are very powerful and sealed. Because in general, and I've already mentioned this once or twice, but I'll make it a key point, the fact that people are playing more swingy spells because they feel like they have more time, or even if you're the aggressive deck, removal should be valued very highly. Last thing you want to do is lose to simply your opponent playing one single bomb and you have no answer to it, or them curving out on you and being extremely aggressive and you can't fight the onslaught. So as usual, cheaper removal is always better, but there is some value to non-conditional removal, just being able to remove something, period, regardless of what it is. Like I said, people are going to try to play 3 factions. They're going to try to play all the best cards they can. So you have an equal chance of seeing a low to the ground or just standard, this is a good condition, like good limited deck. And as well as just really swingy jank, like someone just opens up a bomb site and they're like, you know what, my pool is garbage, but if I can somehow buy enough time to get my site out, then I get an awesome unit and get value and stuff like that. So removal, once again, like I mentioned before, goes up in value even more than limited. Primarily just the top end stuff, things that like, downfall and eviscerate, and the stuff that you kind of aren't sure if you want to play or not, or play too many of them, you actually can put more in your deck because of the fact that you have a higher chance of having solid targets for it. So So this leads us into our final segment of the episode, which is the What's the Play? So, well, this one we have a bit of an interesting one. It's an early gameplay, but the fact that we have multiple lines makes it feel like I think it's a good play. What's the play this week? So, let's break it down for you guys. It is turn 4, and we are on the play. Our opponent is Ixton, Fire Justice Primal with 3 power. They have the Skycrag Stranger, the 2/2 for blue and a red. They have the Tinker, the 2/2 Endurance. And they just finished playing the Crow that has Berserk, and it draws you, whenever it attacks, it draws you a random 1 power spell. So they just played it. They're at 22. On our side of the board, it is turn 4. We also have all 3 fire for our Ixton. We have Fire Justice Primal. We have 3 power. We have a equal 2/2 Skycrag Stranger on the board. And then we have a shifted Earthshaker, which is the 4/6 flyer. And when she comes into play shifted, she deals 1 damage to all non-flying units. And she has 2 ticks left because we played her last turn on turn 3. We're at 19 life, and our hand consists of Tireless Stranger, which is the 3/3 for 3 that gives all your strangers endurance. We have a Retribution. We have the Justice Coin, which onslaught trigger, give a +1/+1 to one of your units. We have the Yeti Trumpeter, the 2/2 for 2 and a blue, that if tribute, i.e. something died this turn, it becomes a 4/4. We have the Hunting Terriax, I think it is, the 2/4 for 6, and then onslaught flying, and then onslaught deals 2 damage. And then the Guard Dog, which is the 3/3 for 3 and a Justice. And when tribute is activated, it gets a +1/+1, becoming a 4/4. So the reason why I picked this one is because, like I said, I